Life number 3, Amazonia. Tayo had been greatly saddened by what he had seen on his last visit to the blue planet. There was little or no friendship between men and beasts. Humans fought against each other, and many animals were hunted and cruelly treated. In fact, things were no longer anything like they had been in the old country. Even his beloved Murry, who had cared for him while he had been a striped tomcat, had also returned to his ancestors. Tayo could see no familiar faces among the people of Earth, so he decided to go and live amongst his own kind for a change, so that he could learn their ways and so understand their sufferings, hopes, and fears. The river was wide, the jungle thick and tangled, and the screech of the birds called to everything that the sun was rising over the swampy banks. The mottled yellow and black female jaguar writhed, and she whimpered to herself as her 2 cubs were born. Her mate patrolled the nearby bank, ever heedful of predators and anxious to ward off unwelcome guests with his low, persistent growls. Tayo's father was big and strong, and although his coat was dark, in the bright sunshine the mottled markings could be seen under his sleek fur. Only too aware that he was once more a she, Tayo blinked at the green maze around her as her eyes gradually opened. Below her the river washed past and the water spirits sang sweetly, just like they used to in Pascha land. The sun peeped shyly through the tall trees, and in the background there was the chattering of many creatures Tayo had never seen or heard before. This was a new life. There were no humans around, only animals. Tayo's parents, who were kind and understanding, lost no time in explaining to their 2 offspring what they needed to learn in order to survive. One of the most important things was always to be on the watch for predators. There were lots of unpleasant animals around, but none more vicious than the large, coiling snake. A clever jaguar could overcome such an enemy, but he or she needed the help of a mate. Then there was the question of one's dinner. In this strange, humid place, there were no kindly priests to serve a cat food on a plate. Only that which was caught and killed was available, and Tayo had never done any hunting before. Tayo's parents were both very religious and worshipped God whom they called the Huntress. "But who is she?" Tayo asked. "She is the great Huntress," her father told her. "Sometimes she appears as one of us, sometimes as another animal, and other times as a soft light darting among the trees. She is the Great One who helps creatures like ourselves to survive on this cruel planet." "Is this really a cruel planet, Father? Cruel all over?" Tayo asked. "It is a very bad place," her father continued. "And we of the cat family are obliged to kill other creatures, or else we, too, would die." "But surely it was not always so." Tayo was puzzled. "No, indeed, there were days in the past." He stopped, as if times were too painful to recall. Tayo cut in. "I, too, know of those days." But before she could say another word, her father spoke firmly. "Then you must never ever think of them or try to recall them, for such memories will bring you nothing but sadness. It is good that creatures should forget other lives if they were good ones, especially if times are hard. In this way, they will best cope with what is happening in the present." And so Tayo forgot all about the old country and settled down to the task of learning to hunt and survive in the jungle. Tayo's family always hunted together. Mother would go on ahead and attract the attention of any unfriendly beast that might be lurking around to pounce on them. Once a creature had shown itself, she would entice it towards her, but always keeping just out of its reach. Then Father would come up from behind and finish it off. Tayo thought that this was a very clever way of doing things, as the attacker usually thought it was only dealing with one cat. On one occasion, a large snake attacked their mother, and Tayo and her brother jumped up and down anxiously when their father did not seem to be doing anything about it. But just as the evil grip started to tighten, Father's jaws closed on it from behind so suddenly that it could not have known what hit it. Tayo was so excited that in her effort to help, she caught the thrashing tail in her teeth and bit it as hard as she could. Mother and father always hunted for food, and when they had made a kill, there was a strict order for eating. Tayo and her brother ate first, then father, and finally mother. The reason why her parents did not eat at the same time was simple. One always stood guard so that the other could eat in peace. When Tayo and her brother reached maturity, they had to join the other end of the queue and have what was left over after their parents had had first pickings. The day eventually came when Tayo's parents called her and her brother together for a serious talk. "Children, you are no longer youngsters and must now take your way in the jungle alone. Tayo, you must find a mate and rear your own young, and you, my son, must travel afar and seek territory which you can mark as your own. When you have done this, you can look for a female to share your land with you, for such is the way of nature. It is therefore right that we should chase you away, lest you become too used to the ease of home life with us where all is done for you." Tayo knew that these were words of love, and therefore she and her brother were not troubled when her parents growled at them and chased them off into the jungle, far beyond the land her father had marked as his domain. Such times are hard for a young female jaguar. Without a mate to hunt with, the chances of survival are slim indeed. Tayo wandered through the dense undergrowth, not daring to lie down and rest for fear of enemies. Her parents had taught her to swim, so the swift river torrents did not frighten her. She decided to cross to the other side, but not at the broad part. Further along, there were places where the two banks were closer together. It would be easier to cross there. After trudging many miles in silence, Tayo became anxious. How could she hope to find a mate if there were no other jaguars in the area to sense her presence? If she were to call, her enemies would also know her whereabouts. Tayo thought and thought. She was not really afraid of many creatures, only the long snakes that twist and entwine themselves around their victim's body. These evil creatures had squeezed the life out of many a fine cat in the past. Tayo flopped down exhausted. She could hear the wash of the water just ahead, but she now felt too tired to swim the river. She made her protest in the form of a loud roar which said, "If you are the mate for me, and you are out there among those trees, come to me. I am here, and I am tired and hungry." And so saying, she dropped off to sleep. But Tayo had not been asleep very long before a strange sense of danger caused her to wake up. She opened first one eye, then the other. There was a rustle in the nearby grass, and Tayo saw before her the thickest and longest snake she had ever seen in her life, much longer, in fact, than the one her father had killed for her mother. She froze with fear and dared not move. Slowly, her wits returned to her. From the sound of the water, she knew she could not be more than a short distance from the river, perhaps only a few feet. If only she could tackle this monster in the open. Inch by inch, she started to edge away, but the snake followed stealthily, gaining on her with its every movement. As her retreating paws touched the warm mud of the river, the snake suddenly lunged. Tayo dodged aside, but the creature was too quick for her, and it soon had a firm grip around her body. She tried hard to get a claw hold on the slippery skin, but to no avail. So this was the end. What a short and useless life, she thought to herself. She felt her strength slowly ebbing away as the grip tightened, and then the snake went limp, and Tayo rolled free into the warm water of the river. A hot, rough tongue was licking her, and as she looked up, her eyes met another pair of green eyes, larger than her own, set in an even larger black head. It was one of her own kind. "You really shouldn't take on these things by yourself. They are much too large for you." There was a touch of humor in his voice as the young male jaguar spoke to her in thought language and made gruff little comforting noises in his throat. This told Tayo that he, too, had once lived in the old country, although he had never actually been in Pasha land. "Were you banished from home, too?" she asked him. "Of course, but I left some time ago, and I know this area like the back of my paw. In fact, I have it well staked out and marked. So, welcome to your new home. You are the first lady cat to visit me." "How did you know to come when I was in trouble?" questioned Tayo. "Well, I heard you approaching earlier, but I was so busy trailing old Silas here," he indicated the dead anaconda, "that I was a bit late in coming to meet you. I lost him for a bit and then picked up his trail again, and look who it led me to." "And did you see him attack me?" Tayo seemed a little peeved that this handsome cat had actually allowed that to happen. "Oh, yes, but I had to get into just the right position to grab him. Of course, I would never have let him really harm you." They rubbed noses affectionately. Even though Tayo's mate did remember Atlantis and other places, they agreed it was best to get on with their jungle life and not talk about such things. He was a very practical cat with a thoroughly down-to-earth approach to the life he had chosen. They lived happily together for many years in what was purely an animal's world. At no time did they see any humans, although they had heard from other cats that there were some living further down the river where the jungle was less dense. And when old age finally took them back to their ancestors, Tayo was very grateful for the many lessons he had learned about the lives of the wild beasts on the blue planet.